Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode on this series on increasing visibility to unleash your Microsoft 365 potential. In this episode, we will talk about team ownership and how team owners are key to a successful collaboration strategy. I'm joined today by my good friend Drew Madelung. Drew, how are you doing today?
Good, Vlad. Got a little snow up here today, so ready to talk some tech.
That's awesome. Well, I'm about to get snow a bit later today, but you know what? Let's do it a bit different. Let's start with you introducing yourself first this time.
Absolutely. So my name is Drew Madelung. I'm a longtime Microsoft MVP and a longtime Microsoft consultant, helping organizations deploy and manage Microsoft 365, primarily on the IT pro side or the really how stuff works in this space.
Awesome.
Vlad.
And hello, everyone. My name is Vlad Catrinescu. I'm a Microsoft MVP from Montreal, Canada, as well as an author of over 70 courses on Pluralsight. Today, in this episode, we will focus on three main things. First of all, we will do a quick overview of the Microsoft Teams membership roles. We already talked a bit about that in the first episode, but we'll do a quick recap just in case you missed it. Then we'll focus on team and channel settings, which will be the bulk of our episode here, and finally talk about some admin best practices. But I already kind of mentioned that this is episode four. I mentioned episode one before. This episode is part of a series for Microsoft 365 admins. So if ever you missed the first few episodes, make sure you check out the Siskit channel on YouTube and watch the rest of them. But let's get started. And we'll start with Teams membership roles. Now, in Microsoft Teams, we the Microsoft actually, before we even talk about Microsoft Teams, I'll take a step back. The Microsoft Teams membership is linked with the Microsoft 365 group membership. You cannot have a Microsoft Teams team without having a Microsoft 365 group attached to it. And whether we add people from Microsoft Teams or from the Microsoft 365 group, they all end up being in the Microsoft 365 group. In our group, we have three different roles. We have the owner, which has access to settings such as updating the group or team settings. They can edit the group or team properties. They can add other people. We have the member, which can collaborate inside the group and team. And then we have a guest. Guests have almost the same exact permissions as members. However, we're able to target some settings specifically to them after, and we'll learn about that in just a few minutes. Owners, like we said, can add members directly to the team. However, in a private team, members can also request to add somebody, and then the owner can approve it. In our first episode, we really deep dived into all of this and learn more about Microsoft 365 groups. So I don't want to repeat all of that. So let's head directly into the team and channel settings. Now, Drew, let's see if you are still awake there. How many channel types do we have in Microsoft Teams?
There's four channel types are available, and I think what's really important as you're thinking about the membership roles that Vlad just talked about. One of the key scenarios, if you think about this talk here, is Teams ownership is incredibly important, and channels are the functional foundation of Teams. You can have really there's no you can't have a team without a channel. So when you're thinking about team ownership, knowing the different channel types and knowing what you can do with each of these is vital to become an empowered team owner.
You are correct. And uh, the fact that from a business perspective, and we keep empowering users. We don't want IT to have to do everything, right? We want to empower end users to take care of their own team. They're adults, they're grown people. We want to make sure we empower them to manage the setting in their team, and we give them this responsibility. So I think one topic we'll talk about as well later, Drew, is training will be very important on those owners. But you know what? I feel like we've done enough slides. Let's actually go and check out the different channel types. And we said there was 4 of them. We have the general channel, standard channels, private channels, and shared channels. So let's go check them out in practice, and let's break a few things. Let me go open up here Microsoft Teams as Vlad. And I have a nice team over here where it's called episode 4. Perfect. This, by default, when I create a team, you see I have a general channel. Each single team in Microsoft Teams has a general channel. So that is one of the types of channels that is there by default. You cannot change the name, you cannot delete it. Each single team will have the general channel there. Let me dismiss this notification here. It's annoying me a bit. Then I can go here and I can add channels. So I'll call it here a standard channel. Of course, you should add a description, and then I can select what is the type of channel I want this to be. Standard, private, or shared. Let me select standard here, and then I want to say, hey, automatically show this channel in everybody's channel list. I don't have a permission or anything for standard channels because standard channels are simply there to organize your discussions into different channels. So they don't grant different permissions. They're simply there to make conversations more targeted, to make it easier for people to know what the conversation is about. If I log in as Vanessa here, which also has access to this team as a member, you see I see the standard channel in here. But now something I want to show you. If I go to manage team here, by the way, and this is by default, you'll go to members. This is where you'll see the membership of the team. You see I have Vlad Catrinescu, which is an owner, and then Vanessa Lee, which is a member. By default, even if I'm only a member of the team, I can go there and add channels. So I can go add a channel here. We'll say make fun of Vlad here. And I can decide that this channel is a private channel. Now, by default, inside Teams, members can create private channels, but only owners can create shared channels. So you see, that's why I only have 2 different options here. So you know what? I'll create it as a private channel. Let's click on Create. Private channel membership will always be a subset of the team membership. So for example, if I go and want to add John, which is another account that I have inside my tenant, I'm not able to add John to this channel because John is not a member of this team. The only person I can add right now is Vlad because Vlad is member of the team. But we don't want to add anybody yet. Let's just keep it like that, make fun of Vlad. But wait a minute. So Vanessa, as a member, created a private channel but did not add Vlad in it. Does this mean Vlad, because Vlad is an owner of the team, can actually see the channel? And the answer is no.
No.
So when I go in as Vlad here, I have no idea right away that a channel got added to make fun of me. Drew, how do some team owners feel about this default behavior?
It's necessary, but it's one that requires, as we talked about, training, right? So the scenario here, you can't get around it because of the use case that it requires. So there are scenarios where this is a way that to help prevent team sprawl. So before this, you would always have to go out and create new teams for any time you wanted to put a security boundary in place. And that led to challenges into having more teams than you needed. So what this gives you is more empowerment within a team to control things at a more granular level, but with, as Spider-Man would say, right, with great power comes great responsibility. And as a team owner, you are responsible for helping support that. You might not be part of it to begin with, but you know it exists, right? Like you know it's there. So
Yes.
you're still part of the ownership and management of it.
Yeah, and even if you don't see it here, you can always go to channels here. And in this view, you're able to see what are all the channels, even if you don't have access to them. But as you can see, I cannot add myself to it. I know it's there. I know it's a private channel, so I know somebody's making fun of me, but I don't have information on that channel. I cannot add myself to it. And I think Microsoft uses the term true privacy when they talk about private channels, that once it's created, not even the team owner can add themselves to it. So you can be the team owner of an HR team because you're the IT person inside, but you don't have access to the discussion about salaries because that's a private channel. So even if you're the IT person, you don't have access to sensitive discussion. So it does have a lot of benefits, but it can take a bit of
I
time
want to say
getting used to it.
the main scenario I see this for in the project-based work that I do every day is when we want to separate financial information from the overall project information. So a very common practice for team owners is to have someone in a program management or project management role be part of that, or a leader be part of that. From an owner say, I have a project where we're working on a security initiative. We don't let anyone else into actually identifying maybe what that audit was or what the financials are for that project. But we need to have, and the person that dictates that, they need to own all the other channels, but we need to put and privatize the financials or potentially sensitive data for customers into a location that if we're bringing vendors in, as you start to talk about guests, how are we going to start to lock them down securely?
Yep, that's an excellent use case, Drew. Okay, so this is private channels. Now, let's talk about shared channels. You know what? Let me go to this team that I have here. So I'll just show you I'll pin all of the channels. This way it's easier to see. You see I have a team here called, I know I'm very creative, it's called Team Without Vanessa in it. So if I go to the membership of this team, you'll see I only have Vlad inside. So what I can do, let me add John in here just to show you that John Smith does exist. I was not joking earlier. I could only not add them because they're not part of the team. But you know what? I have this team here without Vanessa. Let me add a shared channel here. And then I will call this channel website redesign, okay? So I'll add it here. By default, I can share this channel with everyone on the team or not. I'll leave that to yes. So I'll add John in it, basically. But what if we need Vanessa's help in this channel? But you know what? I don't want Vanessa to see all of the different channels in this team. I only want Vanessa to work on the website redesign part of it. What shared channels allow me to do is, first of all, I can add a member to only one single channel of the team. So in a way, it can be used as a private channel, but then I can also add people. So now you see, if I go back in, log in as Vanessa here, I have the team without Vanessa that I just got added into. And then I see the website redesign channel, and I have the little link next to it, which I know it's a shared channel. So that's one of the first things that it allows me to do. What I can also do with a shared channel, I can share it with another team. So maybe I have team on project A, team on project B. You know what? They have an initiative together that even if it's two separate projects or two separate divisions, they need to work on something together. I can share a shared channel with another team. So everybody that has access to the other team will see a copy of that channel. They're able to interact with it as if it was a channel in that team. And to make things even more fun, I can share it with people outside my tenant. So for example, Drew, what's your email? I think it's drew@madelung.com, if I forget.
You can do Drew at
correctly.
Drew Madelung. Do Drew at drewmadelung.com.
I was close. Let's see if I added you here. There we go. This is something that, I mean, this can be a whole other 1 hour conversation because it needs a bit of setup beforehand. But what I can do is I can share this channel externally with somebody in another tenant. that person would not have to tenant switch to have access to this channel. They would see it directly as if it was one of their channels in Teams. So I can share it both internally and externally. So at a very high level, those are the different types of channels inside Teams. And again, I feel like we can make, especially on shared channels, we can make a 1 hour episode just on that part.
But as a team owner, you really want to make sure you understand the power of each of those, right? So if you're watching this or if you're an IT administrator, knowing there's configuration behind the scenes, but these will be used in your organization. And you need to understand how they work and what the reasons are for them, so you can start to empower the team owners across your organization to say when you should be using private channels, why you should be using shared channels, internally or externally, right? Like this is not internal or external. It's an internal or not an and. So you can do both. As Vlad showed, you can do internal shared channels, and you need to know what they are to be a good team owner.
Yep. Okay, so now that we know the channels types, let's start talking settings. In order to go to the team settings again, just go on the three dots and simply go to Manage Team, and then we will go to the Settings tab over here. First thing we can change are the team details, so team title as well as the team picture. Remember, when you change it here, it will change it for the whole Microsoft 365 group. Then the member permissions. Now, we have seen that the default behavior is that members can create and update channels by themselves, right? So, oops, I clicked on the wrong thing here. So do I still want to allow members to create and update channels, or do I want to make this a team owner only task? Maybe I don't want members to do it, only owners can do it. But you know what? Maybe I want to allow members to create standard channels, but I don't want them to allow to create private channels. I have a specific setting only for private channels, which is kind of cool. Now, if I leave it like that, and then I go to Vanessa here, let me just give it a refresh for good luck. You always give it a refresh for good luck after you change settings. I'll go to episode 4 here. Let's go to add channel. You see, I don't have the drop down anymore. What type of channel do I create? Because I could have only created standard or private. We took private away, so by default, it will be a standard.
Now, Vlad, what if someone doesn't see that option in there? So they're right. I want to be clear. This is per team. Is that right?
Yes, you are correct. This is a per team setting, but all of the settings that we will look at the team level, admins can configure them at the tenant level. So there is a possibility that, you know what, I cannot modify or I don't see some of those settings. That's because your team admin already configured it at the tenant level. I guess that's what you're looking at, Drew, right?
It was, yes.
Okay, good. I passed the test. Yes. I got scared there for a bit. Okay, then, after that, my next setting. Do I want to allow members to delete and restore channels? I can always say, you know what, I allow them to create them, but not to delete them. By default, again, members of your team can delete and restore channels. I can remove that. Do I want to allow members to add and remove apps from our team? So in my channel, do I want them to add a Power BI app, a Planner app, or maybe even a third-party app? Do I want to allow that or not? Do I want to allow members to upload custom apps? Now, this is one that very often is turned off at the tenant level to not allow members to, we call it sideload apps. But do I want to allow somebody that went on GitHub, found an APK file of a cool Teams app, and just upload it to the team or not? Do I want to allow members to create, update, and remove tabs, connectors, all options you can or cannot give? And now we get to the two that I feel cause the most discussion inside a company. Do you want to allow members to delete and edit their messages? Now, of course, you will have uh, some heated arguments sometimes around those two settings because some people will say that, hey, you know what? I want to edit my message because I made a typo. I don't want to have to write three other messages to correct the typos that I did. And I know we don't all have Copilot that fixes all our spelling mistakes for us yet. So maybe we want to edit it. But then you have the other people that will argue, you know what? I don't want to allow you to edit or delete your messages. Once you post it, it's there. I don't want you to, hey, you receive some bad comments, things like that. You go edit your messages, and then the first poster looks like the mean guy, or somebody else doesn't understand the conversation because the messages above were deleted or edited. So this is like a per company, even per team setting. Drew, do you what team do you see? What side do you see most of your customers on? Do they allow it or do they not allow deletion and editing?
Yeah, we've moved more to open deletion. That's been a common practice I've seen. There are levels of guest deletion, which we'll talk about. That there are some administrative settings you can do at the top level, but the retention is still there. It's not like if things are lost, it's simply a statement of ease of use for discovery. It's kind of a concern there, but I like seeing from a team ownership perspective and that people make mistakes. There's less maliciousness activity out there than you would think. And being able to edit, same like being able to edit a tweet or an X post, like it's nice to be able to make changes like that to support so you don't lose context of that. And there's other, if you're looking from a compliance or retention standpoint, there's other tools in Purview which we can look at to help mitigate some of the compliance checks that you might be worried about for people typing, especially in the communication compliance space.
And unlike X, you don't need to pay a premium subscription to edit your messages in
Exactly.
Teams. But let's not give them any ideas. Uh, awesome. Okay, now we move from member permissions to guest permissions. Do I want to allow guests to create and update channels? Now, again, by default, this is set to off. And right now, because I don't allow members to do it, guests cannot do it. But if you want, you can say, you know what? Guests cannot, or guests can create, update, and delete channels. It's up to you. And you can separate the permissions between guests and members. Now let's move on to mentions. Mentions are a great way to attract somebody's attention in Microsoft Teams, right? So, hey, I need help with something here. I can go into the general channel and then I can either tag the whole channel here, the whole general channel, or I can tag the whole team and say, help me now on this. For example, and this will send everybody a notification in their Microsoft Teams team. Again, they can be very powerful, but they can also be very annoying. Now, I know both me and Drew are part of some teams in another tenant where some people, for every message they do, they just tag the whole team, which has 3,000 people inside, just because they think they're important and they want to make sure everybody sees their stuff. But it's also very annoying just because, again, I don't know the answer to their question, not because you tag the whole team that they'll get a notification, they'll stop what they're doing. They might not be the right person to help you on that.
And you need to, so when I'm in today, outside of that one, I'm in a change management one for an organization that we, as changes go through their change advisory board, we push them through. And if you ever need to, there's many changes per week. You can mention the entire change board to get them active. But there are some more, from a team ownership perspective, you need to understand that what the power of those are, and you can manage. I think that's the key thing, is that people will do it. You want to have it on by default. And then if you start to, as your team starts to grow, if it has a specific use case, then you can start to bring that down and use some more of the things that Vlad's going to talk about in a minute around like tagging to be more secure, or not secure, more locked down in the level of communication that you get, because you can get honestly, you can get activity fatigue or notification fatigue. There's one intent I log into every day. I get the at mentions for the teams are very popular, but if you're part of a lot of teams, they becomes noise. So you need to make sure that you're, as a team owner, you understand what the impact is by turning that on, especially the at channel. If for people mentioning like at general,
Yeah.
it can be very noisy, and you want to restrict. You only want to do those when necessary.
Something that I like to do, Drew, is actually I like to turn them off for members. And what do we do instead of that? Well, come on, turn off there. Didn't want to turn off the first time. So turn them off, and then I'll actually talk about tagging right away. If I go into the team tree docs here, I can go to tags. What are tags? Tags allow me to create a group of people that we can then mention for a notification. So then, let's say I create one for developers inside the team. Great, I can add, of course, right now, I don't have many people in my team, but let's say I'll add Vanessa and Vlad. Then I'll create another tag here. I will call it project managers here. There we go. Let me type it properly. Great. In this one, I will only add Vanessa. Then after that, we can create another tag, and we will call it QA team. For example, let's add only Vlad in this one. Again, perfect. And then after that, when I go to my channel, instead of tagging the general channel, I can tag a certain role only. So even if I talk in the general channel, I don't mention the general channel. I only mention developers because I have a question for developers. Maybe I have a budgets question or a timeline question. I don't need to tag the whole channel. I can tag a row of people inside that channel. So I can still notify people. However, I can make them a lot more targeted and also make sure that whatever channel the discussion is in, I can tag the right people based on their role. So that's something that I've been loving to use. I've been loving to implement. And from a settings point of view, I can even decide, can only owners create tags or can owners and members create them? That's the setting we have around it.
And I think tags, as someone who helps work with organizations deploy teams, I think tags are the most underutilized function from a team's ownership perspective. The ability that it does take a little bit of time to understand the roles in your team, and it is something that's not a set it and forget it. So as people come in and out of your team, you do need to continuously manage those tags. But when you do, you'll see much better adoption by using at mentioned than you will for channel, like just channel conversations. So you'll see as you become more prolific in Teams usage, as more teams in your environment, without getting at mentions, it's very hard to scroll through and know what you need to go look at unless you have time dedicated for like a Teams level review. So, and people are scared of doing as we just talked about, doing it at channel. It can be very powerful and very large. So being able to target specific people to get their attention and to use knowledge in channels versus using knowledge in chat. Because what people will do is just go create a Teams chat, right? They'll go create a group chat and say, I need Bill and Vlad and Mary, and they're the PMs. And I say, can you give me the budget report for tomorrow? And it's like, well, technically someone might need that the next week. So it would be much better to use tags there than moving to group chat. So as a team owner, think about that. Think about the scenarios when you move to group chat and where tags can be used, because it truly is if you're thinking about unleashing your potential, this would be unleashing the potential of teams.
Yep. And you do bring a great point there about keeping the knowledge inside the channel, because in the chat, the problem is if two people in the chat get fired, leave the company, that knowledge is gone. If that discussion was in the channel, that knowledge would remain there as persistent. So really important to do your best to try and keep all the knowledge inside the team. This way you make sure it's not lost even if the users leave the company. Okay, Drew, now to move on to the next one. This is the most fun one to talk about because those are the fun settings. And I love that it's just called fun stuff. That's the setting categories, fun stuff. How can you not have fun talking about fun stuff? Okay, first of all, do I want to enable Giphy or not for this theme? And I feel like I need to show some of them live here. So by default in Microsoft Team here, we have a GIF generator. I'll zoom in a bit, make sure we see it. So somebody posts something cute. Here I have the little mouse that says love here. So we can truly have fun with it here. We have this dog here in the wind. So and you really have full access to Giphy. So I can search for Yay, for example, and see a bunch of GIFs that have to do with that. So that's my first setting. Do I want to enable it or not? And if yes, do I want to allow all content, moderate or strict? Now, my recommendation is you should never go to allow all content. And actually, by default, you will not see allow all content in your tenant because the default tenant level setting is either moderate or strict. And you do have the ratings here, for example. So moderate is the content rated G. I don't know all the ratings by heart. I don't really know what they mean. I know Drew, as a daddy, you know a lot more of those ratings and what they mean for things like that for shows, games. I don't know any of them, but what I would recommend for most companies is strict or moderate. This way, you make sure there's never any inappropriate stuff that filters through all the different Giphies. Then we have the stickers and memes. Now, this is a feature that I feel like people don't really know about. Let me go here, and you see some of the different memes here, they have a little pencil icon next to it. So what I can do here is, you see I have the happy kid here. I can go edit it, and then I can create a meme out of it. So I can say, finally, Drew got fired as an example, and then just send that inside the conversation. So instead of just replying with a generic GIF or something, I can just create my own meme. So I have my own meme generator directly in Teams. And I think one of the ones I like the most is this one. Because I'm an IT pro, so I have to make fun of devs. Is it works on my machine, or the most up-to-date version of this one, it works inside my dev tenant because we have to upgrade to the cloud. Uh, Drew, do you use them sometimes?
I don't know if I could work in teams without gifts. I don't think it's possible. And I think as a team owner, this decision normally doesn't come back down to the team owner. This is one that inherits down from your organizational settings. So if you don't see it here, it's because there are organizational settings that do enable and disable this functionality. If the one thing if you are a team owner, or if you're an administrator and you turn some of these off, there's nothing stopping anyone from going to Google or Bing and grabbing GIFs and memes and putting the same images in. So you're not stopping image upload. All you're doing is decreasing the time of copying and pasting. So
I
you're not
just did one.
stopping
I
it.
know you're a cat person, Drew, and you had cats in all your demos, so I had to do one with a cat for you.
It's great. And it's funny. I do have customers or people I work with that don't have these enabled. And it's interesting to hear the team owners and I would say the employee experience that there's become an acceptance to this. And if you don't have it, there will be people the people will not be as happy by not having it. So there are reasons why you don't do it from a discovery and perspective. That's hard to manage and discover some of the content specifically in these. But I do, especially when you get there are scenarios where this does really help. So it's an interesting one that there's not a right answer. I'm glad they have them. I do see a lot of organizations have them disabled as a team owner. So if you're a team owner, don't be distraught. It's okay. They're settings that the organization is managing on top.
And I also think that it always depends on the context, right? If we have a team about layoffs that are happening and things like that, maybe you want to not have any gifts or things like that because we've seen more and more court cases that argue about the meaning of an emoji, for example. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we're going to see court cases that argue the meaning of a GIF and things like that. So there might be specific scenarios where you turn it off, but I don't think you should adopt a turn it off by default kind of stance and just not have it anywhere. But anyway, let me send this one, Drew, before I lose my beautiful creation.
That's a good one. I'm gonna have to save that one in this tenant here.
Oh, there we go. But I think other than that, we a bit covered. Oh, well, I'm as Vanessa here. That's why I do not see. We covered a bit of our team settings. But before we're done, I also wanted to spend a few seconds and I want to cover the channel level settings. Now, the channel level settings, you'll have different settings for your general channel, for standard channels, and then private and shared channels have the same settings. So we'll cover them as one. Now, okay, for the general channel, you can decide, can anyone post messages? Can anyone post messages, however, show an alert that, hey, if you post here, all the 4,000 people in this team will see the general channel has a new message? Is there kind of a better channel that you can post in that it's more targeted? Or you can decide and say, you know what? Only owners can post messages inside the general channel. This way, especially if you have a large team, you kind of force people to collaborate in different standard channels that are more targeted. So you do have this option. Now, if we move over to a standard channel, in a standard channel here, we can, of course, change the name of the channel, things like that, but I can also turn on channel moderation. What is channel moderation? Is in a way the same setting, but I can decide in addition to owners, I can add specific people. So maybe I have in a project team, I have a announcements channel. I can decide that, hey, only the team owners and the project managers can post inside announcements. This way, not everybody is allowed to create a new post in there. And then I can decide only moderators can start a new post. Can members reply back to channel messages or not? Can members pin channel messages? And then can box and connectors submit channel messages? So I do have more settings there. Now let's move over to our shared channel here. Instead of creating a new one, I'll just use the one we did there. For the shared channel setting, I have a subset of the settings in the team. So I can say, hey, can people in this shared channel create, update, and remove tabs? Can people delete and edit their messages? So for shared and private channels, I can say, you know what, maybe deletion and editing is allowed at a team level, but in this private channel or shared channel, I don't want that to be allowed. Or maybe it's not allowed at the team and at the team level, but I want to allow it in this channel. You have the ability to do that. Do I want to allow people to mention this channel? I can have this setting at a private or shared channel level, and I can also have different fun stuff settings only for a private or shared channel. They can have their own settings. Now, how it usually works, the team settings will be the default channel settings, and then the owner uh, can change them. So if gifts are not allowed at the team level, by default, they will not be allowed at the channel level, but the channel owner can still go in and change them, unless, of course, they're not allowed at the tenant level. So tenant will always win. But that's about it for our team and channel settings. Did I miss any, Drew?
No, I think, well, let's take a second and talk through that. I mean, that was a lot of information that team owners have, right?
That was a lot of
Uh,
information. I know. And
and
initially, we said we're going to do this in 15 to 20 minutes. And I don't know what
so,
the final time for this video is, but I know it's more than 15 to 20 minutes.
so if I had to say, I'm going to come back and regurgitate one thing that we talked about that I would say is important, and it's going to be managing channels. So if I took away one of all of the things that are going to occur, there's levels of granularity of control that you can have. And as a team owner, to really bring teams to life, you need to be moderating and managing channels inside of that team. So teams owners need to actually be an owner, not just be an account tied to a team. That's what makes a good owner. And it
Yeah.
starts with different channels, whether it's just the general channel, make sure you use the general channel, use tags, and actually treat it like a team, not just a place to put content.
You bring a very good point, and I think this brings us to our admin best practices, because this video is really made for admins. But again, don't hesitate to kind of send it to your team owners, because they might not know all of the settings. But if there are some of the things you have seen and you're like, you know what, I don't want to have GIFs, or I don't want to allow people to delete their messages in all of our tenant, you can configure things at the tenant level. So you can have a baseline of settings, things that you block at the tenant level. Or maybe you want to have GIFs, but you only want to have the strict rating, not the moderate. You can lock that in at the tenant level. The second one, which Drew, I believe we've mentioned a few times already, make sure you train your owners. And Teams is such a big product, and Microsoft is releasing so many things that I feel even us as IT professionals, we're having trouble keeping up with what are all the different settings, what is this thing called tags, and all of that. Imagine end users that it's not really their day-to-day job to keep up with IT. Make sure that you have training available for them. You might have your own, hey, this is what you have to do as a team owner when you get this role. Make sure you have that training available inside your organization. And finally, configure the ownerless group policy. Now, we've already covered this in episode 1, and Drew did a demo, but just in case this is the first episode that you listen, part of the series, you've now seen why having an owner is so important, from the settings to managing the channels to keeping the tags up to date. Microsoft gives us a policy that if ever you don't have an owner anymore inside of the team, they will go and reach out to the most active people inside that group and say, hey, this group doesn't have an owner anymore. Would you like to assume ownership role? And I won't go into details because, again, Drew covered them all already in episode 1. But if you don't use it yet, make sure you go check it out. It's in the M365 Admin Center. It's definitely something that you should implement inside your organization.
And as part of when you do enable this, part of the training aspect would be also informing owners of what this means. Okay, so the ownership side will be continuous about training owners on what you can do as an owner, and then the part of that, it doesn't mean it's just for owner training, right? So people might not be an owner today, but as Vlad mentioned, they might be an owner tomorrow. They might be an owner of the next team that they create. Or in an ownerless group policy, they might be nominated and say, hey, you're active in this team. We don't have an owner. You need to become an owner. So the training for this is evergreen. There's continuous learning that you have with this. And this policy actually will help instantiate that, in which you will be forcing people to be basically telling people we need more owners. So this policy will also bring more light into the power of the ownership role. And there is actually there's emails that can get sent with this that you can include your learning about that as part of it.
Very, very good point. And Drew, I think this is it for this episode that ended up being more than 15 to 20 minutes. Any final things you would like to add?
No, let's talk. Let's say thanks to SysKit here for bringing us
Huge
together.
thanks to SysKit, yeah, for bringing us together, for sponsoring those episodes. And really, if you're looking at a tool to make management of your environment easier, make sure you check out syskit.com. They offer a 21-day free trial, and they can really help you standardize settings and figure out even what are all the settings you have in your Microsoft teams. And this is it for this episode. In the next episode, what will you teach us in the next episode, Drew?
So we showed as an example, Vlad added myself to one of those teams as an external party into that account, into Teams. In the next episode, we're going to be talking all about what if that wasn't me? What if I'm no longer part of that team? So an inactive guest, an inactive person as part of your environment. We're going to talk about what does that mean and guarding against those to ensure that we don't have inappropriate access or inactive access inside of your tenants.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to learning about that. And thank you so much, everyone who stayed until the end, and looking forward to seeing the next one.
Thank you.